Thanks, President. Thanks to you, delegates, and everybody joining us online. It's great to be here with you. I just want to start by paying tribute to Paddy Lillis, your General Secretary, and you should be proud of him because he is such a champion for you and the workers that you represent, whether that's on the TUC General Council, on the workplace front line, or in the corridors of power, and when necessary in the highest courts in the land. He is a fighter, he's an organiser like me, he puts it as the ultimate number one. And you are a union over 400,000 members, well on the way to 500,000, because like we all know, there is real strength in numbers. And just think what you've achieved together over this past year. Incredible achievements, whether that's safety for your members, getting those screens in place, ventilation, stopping the overcrowding in stores, work that has made a real difference to the health and safety of people, winning furlough based on people's actual hours, not their basic ones, fighting fire and rehire, that obscenity that we've seen spread like wildfire through workplaces during this pandemic. But you have put your foot down and said, no, we're not having it here, and you've won. And of course, using your bargaining power too. Morrison's, the first UK supermarket ever to guarantee a minimum of £10 an hour. That was the target that we set ourselves for the New Deal for working people, and Usdaw, together, you have achieved it. You've won hearts and minds too. Let's not forget that, because it's really important to win the public on our side, and you've done that, whether that's, again, about winning fair treatment for workers, whether it's stopping the extension of those Sunday opening hours, whether it's securing a government U-turn on holiday pay, and of course, critically, that fantastic campaign, important campaign to stop abuse and violence against shop workers. You want to change the law of the land, and this whole movement is behind you, because every worker should be treated with dignity and respect at work. This pandemic has taken a terrible toll, not least on key workers who have kept the country going into work right through the pandemic, putting their own health on the line to look after everybody else. And, as a movement, we had a choice. We could have sat on the sidelines, or we could have stepped up, and that's what we chose to do, to step up, put our shoulder to the wheel, and to get the best deal that we could for working people. And together we have achieved a lot, if you think about it. I am clear in my own mind that without the trade union movement working together, there would have been no furlough scheme. And believe you me, I know it's not perfect, but I also know that nearly 10 million livelihoods were saved because of that furlough scheme, that it was the first time in the UK that money was put in the pockets of working people to keep their jobs and livelihoods. And the one thing we know is if you put money in the boardroom, it sometimes stays there. You put money in working people's pockets, and they will spend it in their local communities, in shops and businesses, to keep local economies going. So it was the right thing to do, and together we achieved that. And of course, we also work together on health and safety right across industries and jobs. And I also know that if it wasn't for the trade union movement, we wouldn't have got the standards that we push for. We wouldn't have got government to recognise that it had to follow the law and consult with trade union representatives. And certainly in the first draft of the government guidelines I saw for industries across the board, they had a section with PPE and a great big empty space below it. So I know that the trade union movement working together has made a difference. And last but not least, on equality too, because whatever our race, our religion, or our background, everyone deserves dignity and fair rewards at work. Now, we know there is much more to do, and you know it more than most when you see the devastation on the high street, the job losses, the redundancies stack up. And we've always known, especially for those of us who lived through the 80s, that mass unemployment is enemy number one. Our goal has to be full employment, and it has to be higher health and safety standards too, because too often workers are being left unprotected, and too many employers are playing fast and loose. And government can't get off the hook either. It's no good telling people that if they test positive, they should self-isolate, when we know that statutory sick pay in this country is at one of the worst rates in Europe. Who can afford to live on £96 a week? Even the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, admitted on national telly that he couldn't afford to live on it. So why on earth does he expect anybody else to be able to afford to live on it? It's not good enough. We want to see sick pay improved. We want to see the sick pay problem fixed. And that's got to be by raising it to at least the real living wage, and crucially making sure that all workers, no matter how little they earn, are entitled to what should be a basic worker's right, a human right, so that you are not forced to choose between doing the right thing by public health or feeding your family. Everybody should be entitled to decent sick pay. And when we do get through this crisis, which we will one day, it can't be a case of going back to business as usual. That wasn't good enough for working people before the crisis, and we deserve a whole lot better from now on. There's got to be change. You know, the problem is sometimes when I look at government ministers, I see a moral vacuum where their conscience should be. And I think people are getting tired of hearing about jobs and contracts handed out to mates. We're getting tired of the failure to bring forward that employment bill to meet that government promise that they would enhance and strengthen workers' rights. Why can't they get on with delivering fair taxes so that the likes of Amazon can't just rip off their workers and get away without paying into the pot? And of course, too often we saw ministers on the steps of Downing Street clapping key workers, but then failing to provide the rewards and the safety that they have earned. So we need a new deal for working people, one that recognises that everybody is entitled to a decent job, a job that means you can afford to look after your family, that's rewarded fairly, that gives you time off to spend with your loved ones, and that gives you a voice at work. And the only independent voice at work I know, the best force for justice at work, for good in society, is trade union organisation. So thank you, delegates, for everything that you do. Stick together, stay strong, and solidarity.